Me, 29 male, and my girlfriend, 26 female, don't agree on how much to spend on a ring. This has been a point of conflict for us lately as we've been discussing rings. We've talked about getting engaged within the next year or two, and she's brought up rings and how much she expects me to pay a couple times. Unfortunately, the amount she said is higher than what was expecting. She expects to get a ring that costs between 5–10K. I make about 4K a month after taxes and owe nearly 30K in student loans, so I was a bit off out at hearing that's what she expects. It makes me a bit resentful, to be honest. I feel like I work hard for my money and don't like the thought of using a good chunk of my savings just for a ring. I'd rather use that toward a house or toward my student loans. I understand wanting to have a nice quality ring that lasts, but surely they can be had for 2–5K. I told her that the tradition of men buying rings for women doesn't seem fair to me, since I don't get anything in return. I feel like I should get a nice Rolex or something if I'm spending that much money on a ring. When I told her that, she just said, "Sorry, that's just tradition and that's how it works." I feel like if I buy her an expensive ring that she wants, I'll resent her, but if I buy her a cheap one, she'll resent me. How should I handle this? Wait till she starts talking about her expectations for the wedding ceremony and party. When I told her that, she just said, "Sorry, that's just tradition and that's how it works." The good news is you won't need to spend a dime on the wedding, because tradition is that the bride's father pays for the whole wedding. Make sure you let her know that. I have to say I agree. The whole "you should spend 3 months' salary on a ring" thing is a construct of the wedding industrial complex. It's the height of materialism and is so unromantic. If you got down on a knee and produced the wrong ring, she might actually say no? That detail speaks volumes. I think your conflict is rooted in where your values lie. They are clearly not aligned. Have you talked about 1. Budget for the wedding, 2. Partying expectations post-marriage, 3. Intimate texting relationships with persons of the opposite sex, 4. Sexual frequency and the importance of sexual intimacy for each of you in the marital relationship, 5. Expectations of going to family gatherings, 6. When and how many kids, 7. Expectation of distribution of household chores, 8. Vacation expectations, frequency and expense, 9. Size, expense of first home and timeline, 10. Importance of paying off loans versus house versus expensive furniture versus vacations. If no to several or most of these, you are not ready to be engaged. Tell her what your budget is, and if she wants something more expensive than that, she can chip in on the difference. Woman shrugging. Or realize you're dating someone who doesn't align with your level of fiscal responsibility and think about that real hard. Is she always going to want to spend your money and blow the budget? 42F. Think my husband, 48 male. Might have 2 affair babies with a married woman at church. We've been married for 20 years. In 2017 I found him engaging in online affairs. That's all I found evidence of, but I've lived the entire time with the feeling that something was wrong, because everything you'd expect a remorseful person to do and think, he's the complete opposite. He's also randomly critical and impossible to get along with and displays other behavioral red flags, so I was always suspicious, but I never could come up with anything that fit. At the end of last year, something happened and I finally zeroed in on someone. Quickly everything began falling into place. All the questions I've had and observances about unusual behavior patterns. With that, a lot of memories began resurfacing of things I didn't know the significance of at the time. It all fits. I've speculated on various possibilities in the past, but my suspicions never lasted longer than a few days. This time, with this woman, it's been since October and I haven't been able to shake it. The more I put together, the more it adds up. I don't have anything concrete, but I feel strongly that he's been having an on-again off-again affair with a younger married woman and is the biological father of her 2 sons, who are about 4, 5 and 1, 2. I think she was already in th picture in 2017. I know she's not the only one. That discovery was an entirely different person, and she was one of many online affairs. He was also on all the dating apps but swore nothing physical ever happened. Both of the kids remind me of my son, and my 17-year-old daughter even commented on how they look weirdly like her brother when he was young. There is more than that behind my suspicion, but I'll cut to the main point. Recently I was searching for a file and saw the folder for Facebook data that I'd pulled in 2020. I found in his ads interests: bunk bed, infant, lawyer, lawsuit, real estate, realtor, teddy bear, motherhood, and both of the musical instruments the suspected AP plays. In his marketplace searches, kids Dino skeleton lamp, loft bed, student desk, bunk beds, twin bed, boys full-sized bedding, monster in my pocket cards, Pearl Izumi spin shoes, Cartier bracelet, backyard swing set, both of her musical instruments several times, Mickey Mouse pocket watch, Catwoman costume, and the kicker, engagement, wedding ring. Our kids are grown. The youngest is a senior in high school. We don't have anyone close with kids that age to buy for. There's no way in hell he'd even think about buying me a $4,000 bracelet. He's criticized every dime I've spent for years. The crazy thing is there's no way in hell I'd let him buy me a $4,000 bracelet. To me, this is the first concrete evidence I've found to back up my suspicions. But I've been suspicious for so long, and had to accept less than satisfactory explanations for questionable things so many times that I have a hard time determining what's a big deal and what isn't. His explanation is, I don't remember, and I have no idea why I would have looked at that. A couple of years ago around the same time this was pulled. Probably one of the reasons for it, he'd left tabs open on his computer where he'd been looking at legal sites about divorce, specifically the laws for child support in our state. At the time he'd been irritable and we were arguing a lot and I assumed he was thinking about our kids, but even that upset me because he's always insisted that he wanted to stay married. He did then too, just said that he was looking at it in case I decided to divorce him. About a year before that, same thing happened except it was adultery as grounds for divorce in our state. Same explanation, though it never sat right with me as one. I have been the one putting all the work in to try to fix things, and two, he always maintained he never did anything physical so it wouldn't even be an issue. He said he didn't know that for sure and that's why he looked it up. There has also been twice, once in 2018 and once in 2020 I found him looking at pregnancy-related stuff. At this point, I have reason to believe he won't ever leave me. There is no way our kids or his parents would ever be okay with it. I feel pretty sure it's all a fantasy, largely spurred on by her, but that he would never actually act on. I have no idea if or how much her husband knows. I'm also sure that my H will continue to deny anything he hasn't already confessed to, that he feels trapped both in the affair and in the marriage, and in guilt, shame and lies, and isn't brave enough to do anything to get out of any of it. That doesn't mean I want to stay married if this is true. I'd forgive him anything he showed true remorse for, but if it's come to that, he's past hope and so is our marriage. He knows of my suspicions and claims he's never spoken to that woman but like 3 times. They attend the same church as us. He always refers to her as that woman if I question him, like he's Bill Clinton. The other day I asked him, if that whole family moved away tomorrow and you never saw or heard from any of them again, would it have any impact on your life? He said without hesitation, I would not care at all if I never saw them again, it makes no difference to me. The man I married wouldn't have been able to speak a lie of that caliber without emotion giving him away. This one I'm not so sure. Sorry this got so long, but what do you think? So, here it is. I think your husband is a compulsive liar and an asshole who has cheated on you a lot and may have had kids with that woman. I think it's high time you did some Google searching of your own for divorce, maintenance, real estate. If you really want to continue a relationship with him then it will need to be on your terms. It would take a lot of therapy and a lot of willingness to confess and an enormous amount of change from him. The way that I see it, you have 2 choices. 1. Divorce him. 2. Accept that he will probably always have affairs. Stop caring. Get regular STD tests. If you can't do 2, 1 becomes the only real option. You'll tear yourself apart constantly spying on him, try to guess what's going on. And even if you found absolute proof, what then? Do you actually think he'd stop? Personally, I'd go straight to divorce, but this isn't about me. Why haven't you divorced years ago? His behavior seems ridiculous. You're not a doormat. 1. Why don't you divorce him? 2. Why don't you just ask him outright if those 2 children are his as a result of an affair? Why the vague questioning? I think you should have divorced him 6 years ago. I 24F upset my partner 24M by hitting his hand away in bed together. How can we move forward? So my boyfriend and I have been together for a year and a few months. I tend to get in my head a lot and overthink situations, while sometimes feeling uncomfortable and not speaking up. On Saturday night we were in bed and my boyfriend was making his usual moves. I wasn't really into it but I didn't make it known to him, I just kept it in my head and thought a lot about what I was feeling. I ended up having a jerk movement and hitting his hand away, when I usually just move it gently or tell him and there's no issues. I felt terrible immediately after, and he was very upset and confused and just went very silent and wanted to go to sleep. I apologized and explained but let him be, and we went to sleep. In the middle of the night I felt him quite close to me and then a pain in my back, like I'd been elbowed or kicked or shoved or something. I remember feeling quite upset, but I heard him sort of snoring and it sounded like he was asleep, so most likely it was an accident. However, part of me was concerned that it wasn't, and I felt upset. I brought it up to him the next day and he's apologized and assured me he would never do anything like that on purpose and that I was over his side in bed a lot that night. Potentially he might have tried to roll over and accidentally get me, but he doesn't remember. So now I feel bad about hitting his hand away and the rest. He has forgiven me for my actions and wants to move on, it's just bothered me a tad every so often. How can I move on too? TLDR. I hit my boyfriend's hand away in bed. So you need to actually start communicating. Moving his hand gently away or slapping it away aside. Why can't you just say, "Hey, sorry, I am not in the mood. Can we just cuddle?" rather than moving around his hands and being aloof about it? Is it hard to communicate with words? Next time open your mouth instead of hitting his hand away. Y'all need to learn how to communicate. Your post history is concerning. Are you sure you are mentally healthy enough for a relationship? Your post history is a terror, man. I say this part not as an insult but a genuine recommendation. You need more than therapy. Something beyond just a talk there. Something strategy based maybe medications. But more than just talk therapy. How can I move on too? Learn to use your big girl words. How do I, 24 male, convince my wife, 25 female, I don't care about her pubic hair or cycle? We've been married for a year now after dating for 7 years. I love her dearly and she is the light of my life. Everything is fine, except one thing that's been bothering me for a while. Long story short, she won't let me go down on her unless she's clean shaven and when she's in her fertile window. I've told her on numerous occasions I couldn't care less about the hair, but she doesn't believe it. Fine by me, I understand and respect that she doesn't feel comfortable with hair. I myself feel more comfortable when I am shaved as well. But if it was only that, it wouldn't be that big of a deal since it's a problem. With an easy fix, you just shave. It's the fact she won't let me do it unless she's ovulating because she's convinced it'll taste terrible and different when she's not as fertile, and that it will repulse me. I know how much she likes it and there's nothing I enjoy more than pleasuring her. She sometimes tells me she wants me to but then won't allow me because she's close to getting her period or just got off it. I've known her for almost a decade and it breaks me that she feels as though she needs to look or taste a certain way. I tried to convince and tell her nothing about her or her body would ever come close to repulsing me, but she won't believe it. When she goes down on me with my own junk can be in the most questionable of states, and she doesn't care. I don't understand why she can't see it's the same for me. It's only oral sex that she has these strict rules on, with regular sex she doesn't care at all. Yes, unfortunately women have it drilled into them from a young age that pubic hair on women is gross, dirty, and that vaginas smell like fish, meat, beef curtains. So it's not surprising that she's super self-conscious about this, and I'm not sure what you can do about it, short of what you're already doing, reinforcing that you love her and want her and think she tastes great regardless, etc. Maybe, as a first step, she would be willing to let you go down on her right after a shower? Or she could modify her diet by eating more fruit? I'm not sure if that's been scientifically proven, but supposedly the more fruit you eat, the better you taste. She could also consider therapy or sex therapy to help her work past this issue if it's really becoming a problem. Shrug. I'm the same way, no one's going to convince me otherwise, it's literally not about you. Respect her boundaries. It's okay for her to have them and you not understand them. It has nothing to do with you. It's also how it makes her feel comfortable too. If she feels attractive doing it, then what's the problem? You might not care, but she cares. Your preferences don't override her preferences. It seems like it bothers you a lot while it doesn't bother her at all.